I have now decided to split up the race events I do into two parts. And the reason for that is, well, because since I am going to be doing, well, a bit more racing from now on, I figured it was necessary for me to split this up into two parts, so there is more to gain from the cars I win. And that's why I'm now switching over to the Corvette. And also because I figure there will no doubt be some upgrades available, and I think the Lambo, in terms of its racing by now, it's probably run its course. Plus, I have been keen to try out the Corvette, even though I did beat this car pretty handily when I was racing against Waz. I'm honestly pretty sure that once I put upgrades on this thing, it'll probably be even better than it already is. Of course, I'm not convinced in saying it'll have quite as much acceleration as what the Lamborghini had, but the truth is, well, I digress. And, oh yeah, we also have that unique vinyl as well. Yeah, you know what? Actually, on second thoughts, no. I will save that for another day, as I will check to see what performance upgrades I have available, and I can buy a new transmission. And it seems I already have that. I must have just unlocked it. Suspension, that's good. Nitrous. Yeah, I gotta put stage 3 on. I mean, come on. It's right there, and it's also cheap. You cannot expect me to miss it. And a couple of other stage 2 parts have also been unlocked, and the supercharger has also been fitted. So the only thing we really need to purchase for this thing is nitrous. This actually feels quite similar at one point to my Midnight Club 3 playthrough, where once I eventually got up to the fastest cars in each of the respective vehicle types, I noticed there was a pattern where I did not have to spend as much money on the best cars as I would with most other cars, because, well, the money I was basically earning, along with the cars I was basically winning, well, they were pretty much serving me well enough to the point where their raw speed was basically enough for me to simply not have to worry about doing as much tuning on the car, because the only upgrade I really needed to purchase on the best cars was, well, pretty much the nitrous upgrades. Those were probably the only things I really needed to improve on. Everything else, from what I could see, with the upper echelon cars, they were pretty much fine. Anyway, we've got another 5 races to do, and you know what? I think we'll do the circuit races first, just because I figure these will be the best ones for me to start off with the Corvette, as we will begin at Grey Point. if you're hearing any... Oh, a Ford GT, along with an Audi A4 and another Corvette. I'm pretty convinced in saying that since this thing does have a supercharger, we should more or less be okay for the most part. As I step on the brakes. I'm honestly not surprised to say that we have another Corvette in this race. Oh, yep, we got that shortcut again with the arrows in the middle. And yep, I already go straight into the medium. However, with the secondary median, I managed to avoid going straight into the wall. I'm honestly amazed to say just how little money I have to spend with pretty much these blacklist cars that I seem to be getting for pretty much every next episode I do. I pretty much just decided that I was going to change my strategy and make sure that I pretty much get all of the friggin' blacklist cars, so then I wouldn't have to worry about spending too much money, and also because, well, it can essentially give me the power to do the thing it is that, well, I want to do. This thing definitely feels faster than when Webster drove it. I can certainly say this was not something that should have been on the cards the way it was. I'm gonna have to make sure I stop taking to the dirt because, well, this is not helping my cause right now. Just simply taking to the dirt and having hardly any control over my car. Still, this race has gone surprisingly smoothly, and I have definitely been in the box seat position, well, up until that point at least, to say that racing-wise, this car is actually really good. And I think it's fair to say that when you do win more cars for player usage, it certainly benefits you in plenty of ways when you do manage to get the blacklist cars. From what I know at least, there is a vehicle cap involved. However, I will of course be making sure to include some practical use once we get to the end of the game because, well, you will find out what mysterious supercar it is, and I take to the dirt again when I said I wasn't going to. Anyway, we will try to make sure that we stay out of the medians as much as we can. But either way, I would say the blacklist choices for the muscle cars, they're actually pretty good ones, because, well, up to this point, from what I can recall, I have now driven... I will, at some point in this, be driving basically a Ford Mustang, I would basically be driving a Ford Mustang, a Chevrolet Corvette, and a Dodge Viper, all at one stage or another in this game. And when you think about the muscle car spectrum, that's actually a very diverse selection, because you effectively have one car that's technically been made by the big three car manufacturers of America, with Ford, Chevrolet, and, well, with Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, which these days is owned by Fiat. And a pretty dominant win in the end over Little and Moshi, and Hildebrand finished 4th. So, pretty dominant win if you ask me, and a top speed in the end of 2:13, and Moshi set the highest top speed with 2:19. Presumably he must have been driving the Ford GT. Then I think it was Little who was in the Audi A4, and then I'm going to assume that Little must be... Wait, what was the order again? Ah, okay. Yeah, so I think Little was probably the one driving the other Corvette, and then I think Moshi was the one in the Ford GT, and I think Hildebrand was the one in the Audi A4. But either way, I still put together a pretty dominant win in the end, by 7 seconds over Little. But anyway, and before cops get involved, I will leave this place, because that is what I do. And now we will get through the other circuit race, as we have got 4 laps to do on the waterfront. And then after that, we will have 1 lap knockout and 2 speed trap events. Okay, let's get through waterfront. So we've got an Audi A3, an Audi TT, and a Porsche 911 in this race. Yeah, you know what? I do not fucking care about that shortcut anymore. It's given me nothing but trouble. Every time I've taken it, it's given me nothing but bloodshed. Because I have either crashed, or my car has simply been dislodged by those fucking jumps. I'm taking the normal route from now on. I'm not taking the shortcut, regardless of how much time I lose. This car is clearly not made for those fucking jumps. And if this car is not made for those jumps, then I am not made for the jumps either. Although I really wish I could stop just running into fucking everything that's in front of me. I just want to race, not fucking wreck myself all the time, and basically just finding brand new ways to kill myself. I want to actually race, not just run into everything in fucking existence. Which is what feels like is happening at the moment. Unless I can actually manage to gain some time back again. I did not need to shift down to third gear for that corner. Okay. Can I actually put together a run that works this time? Would be really nice if I could. I just want to at least put together a decent half lap, if that's what it takes. Honestly, how the fuck did he flip? I was not expecting Phil to flip as violently as he did. He definitely must have caught his car on something. Either that or traffic somewhere must have obviously derailed his progress. Yeah, that's why I do not take the shortcut. Regardless of how many times the wrong way sign pops up at me, I know that by going round the shortcut, it is clearly not the wrong way if you're wanting to actually end up out in front. And this time, that appears to be the case, because I am now leading with a margin. There is also a lot of bumps on this course as well. That's another thing I have established. Plenty of bumps and jumps. If there's anything that should be taken note of here. And at the moment, things actually seem to be going well. And hopefully we can... And that's a wall, and... Yep. And now everything has blown straight to fucking hell and back again. As a result of me putting together what was an epic fail of a short shoot that I was attempting to make, and is somehow the only visible road in that part of the map. But at least I'm actually keeping up with the pack this time. Unlike last time where, well, it failed. At least I can say I still have 2 laps to make up for the deficit. Plus, this technically is a long lap anyway. So, I think it's fair to say we should be able to make up for last time. And Lars had an incident somewhere, I couldn't tell you where it was. I'm still not taking that shortcut, because if I do, then my car will simply flop, which is precisely what I don't want. And at this time, we really need to make sure that we put this run together, if we can do that, of course. There are just so many bumps on this course that no matter what car I drive, it just does not want to negotiate the bumps the way I want it to. I gotta say, this is one tough course because of all the bumps and jumps that you just have to somehow cope with. There is just so much fucking traffic. It's almost like flies. They're just popping up. They're practically just spawning everywhere. Everywhere I look, there's traffic. It's either in front of me, in the flowing lane, or basically it's in front of me in the oncoming lane. There's honestly just so much of it, it's impossible to ignore. And that's partly what I think has just made this race so crazy. The fact that, in spite of pretty much all the wrecks I've had up to this point, the fact that I'm actually still in contention for this one is a minor miracle in and of itself. And I'm going to assume the only reason for that as well, because the AI have made their fair share of mistakes as much as I have. That's honestly the only reason why I'm actually still in contention for the win here. Because aside from that, there's not really much else that I really consider to be noteworthy. And I go straight through the toll booth. I'm also pretty sure those constantly respawn every time you hit them as well. As in, regardless of which one it is you hit, they always seem to... You know what? I am gonna shut up now. I'm just gonna shut my mouth. I'm actually gonna try and focus on this, instead of just finding new ways to flop. I need to actually concentrate here, if I am gonna somehow get this right. And that's all it takes for me to actually get back in the lead once again. But also benefiting from plenty of mistakes coming from the AI themselves, aside from me. Which is probably the other thing that's actually been keeping me in contention for the win here. In many ways it shouldn't have done it, but for me it somehow has. Because the AI have been making just about as many mistakes as I have. And in the end of it, I managed to win what was basically a chaos-filled race. Winning in the end, once I overtook Lars, I beat him by nearly 5.5 seconds. As Lars drove the Audi A3, then it was Chopper in the Audi TT, and Phil was less than 10 seconds behind me in the Porsche. And Phil was actually slower than me. Top speed I set was 195, and the top speed of the two Audis was 203. However, my average speed still managed to stay up top, and I had 11 traffic collisions in that race. And I won in the end by 5.4 seconds, virtually. Anyway, it's done. And before my car decides to barrel roll itself, I will head back to the garage, because that is where I know I will be safe. We're now at a Nice completion percentage. Okay. So, 2 races down and still 3 to go. Yeah, let's get through Chancellor Way first. It's only 3 laps, plus this track is relatively short, so yeah, we'll get through this first. And this time we've got a Lotus Elise with a Mercedes SL55 and a Porsche Carrera GT in this one. So this one should be pretty competitive. Okay. I'm actually gonna put more power into this thing now. It's obvious to say that there's definitely something amiss. I'm gonna go maximum on both these fronts and give it one more go. So, I did some performance tuning on this car now, and if you're asking me why it might be a little faster, well, it's because of that. And also because, well, I have simply decided that up to this point, I'm honestly just fed up with running the stock setup. The stock setup on my performance tuning, it's not going to work. I have tried and tried and tried to make it work, but without performance tuning at this point, well, I'm basically skinned. In other words, this race is basically skinning me alive if I do not have some sort of performance tuning on this thing. And that's why I've just gone maximum on the nitrous and maximum on the supercharger. It's obvious to say that I'm definitely losing out in both those areas. Even though I'm not seeming to dodge the traffic. That's honestly the one set of bullets that I cannot seem to dodge at this time. It's honestly like I'm looking at a gangster gunfight. But at least I can say with these, well, performance enhancements, if you will, I actually feel like my car is now in it to win it. Because I did the performance tuning. I just went full send on the performance tune. And I just decided, because of that, I was not gonna just cope with running stocks anymore. I was needing more power, and that was eventually what I got. I could have given this thing more aerodynamics as well if I really wanted to, because then that would have provided me with better cornering speed, but I think with the additional power I have on this car now, yeah, it's pretty obvious to say my car is definitely faster than it was. And well, because I have to be places in the morning, I've just decided not to care about what happens from here anymore. I just want this fucking event to be over and done with. I have suffered pretty much long enough at this point to say this is where I will call it a night, and then get on with the other 2 races another day. And Turbo Freak is now out, so that now leaves me and Slick. And if I recall correctly, Slick is either in the SL55 or he's in the Lotus Elise. Although, it does kind of suck to say, and I know I've said this before, but I will say it again. No, I'll rephrase that. I have said this before, and I basically will say it again, but it really does suck to say that this game, in the statistics, it does not reveal what cars the opponents in the race are driving, unless it's for the blacklist member cars. Which is, well, it's kind of obvious, but I think it's fair to say that because Turbo Freak is out, that's actually relieved me in some instances, because I feel like the mistakes are not as costly as they were. And the other thing is, I feel like I can actually breathe easy for once. Just to end this off. But either way, there we go. And I have been recording this now for over an hour. So Slick finished second, Little third, and Turbo Freak in fourth. Who had an average speed of 66. So yeah, so I won in the end with Slick in second, then it was Turbo Freak in third, and Little finished in fourth, presumably in the Lotus Elise. So Slick, I think, was the one in the SL55 AMG, which is a Mercedes-Benz. Okay, now gonna head back to the garage once again, before cops show up and effectively delay my momentum. So you know what? I'm gonna call it a night, and then I'll get on with the other two races another day when I have the time. So that's this part done, and now we move on to the next part. Whenever that may be. Two races remain on Blacklist 4, and before we get on with those, and well, because I actually have time to finish the races now because I have been preoccupied with my uni work for the last few days, I'm actually going to put my number on the Corvette. I figure, since there is still no heat level on the Corvette, there's a few things I might as well change on this thing. Now, I'm not changing the overall vinyl or the paint job. Basically, the only thing I really want to do here is just put my number on it, so then you will know, of course, that this car does have a distinctive touch that tells you it's mine. And if you're asking me about the unique vinyl I have, well, that will be coming soon. That's not where I wanted to go. Here's where I wanted to go. I am now going to put on my racing number. Yeah, that also works. And no, I'll leave that for afters. Yeah, I'll just put my number on it, and we'll just leave. So we have 2 speed trap events to go. And the reason I put my number on is, well, because of clickbait purposes. And now, I think since we're past the worst of the races we can do in terms of difficulty, I'm going to detune both the nitrous and the supercharger, because I am convinced in saying we should be okay with this, as we have got 2 speed trap events to go. Wonder where they are on the map. You know what? Sod it, I'll drive over. Because, well, I figured, why the hell not? As we are at Highway 99, and where we are driving 5 miles with a cash reward of 16k. Okay, let's go. So we've got a Lamborghini Gallardo, a Mazda RX-8, and a Fiat Punto. And yes, I just decided with 2 races to go that I was going to add my racing number because, well, I figured, why the hell not? And, oh, he's hit a van. Okay, 148 to start with. I think that's a pretty decent starting speed. So 148 to start with. I am up on the rest of the field. And here is to hoping we can keep it that way. As I downshift twice. But I do manage to still set a decent speed with, I think it was 147 I set. So the opponents we have are Street Legal, Iceman, and Low Rider. I have no idea who is running where in this race. But whatever. Point is, we're still running good, and that's all that matters. And going pretty high with that speed there, as I went over 180. Had to step on the brakes there, or else I would have hit the back of that car and lost all my speed. Was definitely one of those areas where I had to readjust. And it looks like I have got this one easily, over Street Legal and Iceman, as I hit a car right at the end, and I pretty much use aggro mode on him. So Street Legal finishes P2 at 9:16, Iceman 3rd with 8:61, and Lowrider 4th with 8:41. So I'm going to assume Street Legal must be the one in the Lambo, and then I think Iceman is the one in the Fiat, and if I was to make a guess, I think it's a Lowrider who drove the Mazda. That's just my guess, but I can certainly say my car was clearly the fastest of everyone else. So, pretty easy win if I do say so myself. I'm convinced in saying the performance enhancements that I still have on this car, yeah, I don't really need those anymore. So I am now going to jump back to the safe house so I do not get spotted or called out by the cops. And we're now at 70%. So one race to go, and that takes place at Green and Fairmont. The one we just did was Highway 99, and the top speed I set in that event was 196. So here is our last race of Blacklist 4. So we've got a VW Golf, Porsche 911 and a Lamborghini Murcielago for our concluding Blacklist 4 race, and I got sandwiched between both the Lambo and the Golf. There was absolutely nothing I could have done in that scenario, as I begin with a speed of 214, which is honestly way more than what everyone else was setting in that first sector split. However, I know I cannot rest on my laurels yet, because, well, as I would have predicted, the Lambo has already caught up with me, or is starting to catch up with me, and that's a truck. I certainly feel like this one is going to be more interesting than the previous one, but hopefully I can keep my car out front, and still in the lead, as my total speed is now up to 435, and my next nearest rival is currently at a total speed of 401, that'll probably change. And Francis, I'm gonna guess, is the one in the Murcielago. Meanwhile, Mervyn is just behind me. And I hit the front of another car. And hitting a pursuit breaker. I'm pretty sure that's what that was, and yeah, there is no way I was getting through that. That was honestly just way too tight for me to get through without hitting the wall. There was no way I was making it through there, unless I literally just slammed on the brakes with all my might, and I somehow got through without crashing. Yeah, I was not going to avoid a wreck in that instance. You could honestly argue the entry to that underpass was basically Death Valley, because of how steep it was. Well, Francis came back strong in those other two sectors, but I was still able to put together the quickest overall speed with 756 miles per hour. Francis was second with 702, Mervyn third with 638. I'm going to assume Mervyn must be the one in the Porsche. And then Snail finished in last in, I think, the Volkswagen Golf GTI. I think that's right. Anyway, doesn't matter. Races are done. Let's now move on.
Attention City District.
And before the cops intervene again, I will jump immediately back to the safe house, as we are now up to just under 600 grand, and we are 70% complete with the game. I did split this up into two parts, but I figured because I was wanting to get some driving time with both the cars I use from now on with these race events, I figured I might as well just, make it more interesting. But there we go. So those were the Blacklist 4 racers. And next up, we will be taking on Joe Vega, also known as JV. Coming in the next episode.